This is not one of those videos that gives you a quick push, a little motivation, so you feel good for 5 minutes, and then go back to the same habits. No, if that's what you're looking for, this is not for you. I don't care if this sounds harsh. I want you to think. I want you to actually face what's going on. No distractions, no scrolling, no pretending, just you and the truth. Because once you understand this, you will never look at motivation the same way again. Today, we're talking about something people completely misunderstand. Motivation, and why it fails. Every time. Long term. Let's be real. Motivation feels powerful. In the moment, you watch something. You get fired up. You feel like, yeah, I'm gonna change. You feel unstoppable. For a few hours. Maybe a day. Then what happens? You go back. Same habits. Same behavior. Same excuses. Now let me ask you something honestly. How many times did you feel motivated and still ended up doing nothing? Exactly. That's not bad luck. That's how motivation works. Here's a real fact. Motivation is based on dopamine, and dopamine spikes don't last. They drop fast. That's biology, not mindset. Now think about this. If your entire plan, your entire discipline, your entire progress depends on a temporary feeling, what happens when that feeling disappears? You stop. That's why motivation fails. Because it's unstable, unreliable, and you keep depending on it. Now here's the brutal truth. Motivation is not supposed to carry you. It's supposed to start you. That's it. But most people try to live off it, and then wonder why they crash. Now let me be direct. If you need motivation to do something, you're already weak in that area. Because people who are consistent don't wait to feel like it. They act anyway. Now think about this. Do you brush your teeth based on motivation? No. You just do it. Why? Habit. Pattern. Automatic behavior. Now let me ask you something real. Why do you expect discipline in important areas, but still rely on motivation? That makes no sense. Now here's another fact. Your brain is built to conserve energy. So when motivation drops, your brain immediately looks for the easier option. Comfort, distraction, delay. That's not laziness. That's biology. Now here's where it gets real. You don't fail because you lose motivation. You fail because you built your system on it. That's the mistake. Now ask yourself this. What happens to your goals on the days you don't feel like doing anything? Because those are the days that matter, not the motivated ones, the normal ones. Now here's what you need to understand. Motivation is emotional. Discipline is behavioral. One depends on how you feel. The other depends on what you do. Now let's make it practical. What do you do? First, stop waiting to feel ready. That moment doesn't exist. Second, lower the start. Don't think big. Just start small. Immediately. Because action creates momentum, not motivation. Third, repeat. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. Motivation is not just useless long term. It can actually make you weaker. Yeah, weaker. Because every time you rely on motivation, you train your brain to wait for the feeling, to wait for the moment, to wait for the right time. And that's exactly why you stay stuck. Now think about this. You don't act until you feel motivated. So what happens on normal days? Nothing. You delay, you scroll, you distract yourself, and then you say, I just wasn't feeling it today. That's not a reason. That's a pattern. Now here's a real fact. The more you depend on motivation, the less control you have over your actions. Because now your behavior is tied to emotion, and emotions change constantly. Now let me ask you something honestly. Do you really want your progress to depend on how you feel? Because if that's the case, you're done before you even start. Now here's where it gets brutal. Motivation makes you feel like you're doing something, even when you're not. You watch videos, you think, you plan, you imagine, and it feels productive, but it's not. It's fake progress, and your brain loves it, because it gives you the reward, without the work. Now think about how dangerous that is. You feel like you're moving forward, but you're standing still. Now let me be direct. You don't need more motivation content. You need more action, because right now, you're consuming more than you're executing, and that gap is killing your progress. Now here's another fact. Your brain adapts to stimulation. The more motivation you consume, the less effective it becomes. That's dopamine tolerance. So what happens? You need more, stronger, louder, more extreme, just to feel the same push. And even then, it fades. Now think about this. You're literally training yourself to need external stimulation, just to take basic action. That's weakness. Now let me ask you something real. What happens when there's no motivation? No video, no music, no hype, just silence. Do you still move? Or do you stop? Because that answer is your level of control. Now here's the shift. You need to stop chasing motivation and start building systems. Because systems don't depend on feelings. They depend on structure. Now here's what you do. First, set a fixed action. Same time, same task, no negotiation. Second, remove choice. Because choice creates delay, and delay kills consistency. Third, act regardless of how you feel. No discussion, no debate, just action. Now here's the brutal truth. If you keep waiting to feel like it, you will never become consistent. Never. Because motivation is temporary, but your goals require repetition. Now think about this. Successful people don't feel motivated every day. They just don't care. They act anyway. And that's the difference. Now let me ask you something honestly. Are you training yourself to act or to wait? Because right now, your habits already answered that. Here's the part nobody tells you. The real growth doesn't happen when you're motivated. It happens when you're not. And you still move. Read that again. Because this is where the difference is. Anyone can act when they feel good. Anyone can push when they're hyped. Anyone can start when it's easy. That's not strength. That's emotion. Now think about this. What happens on the days you feel tired? Unfocused? Distracted? Unmotivated? Those are the real days. Those are the ones that decide everything. Now let me ask you something honestly. What do you do on those days? Do you still act? Or do you shut down? Because that answer is your level. Now here's a real fact. Your brain builds discipline through repetition, not emotion. So when you act without motivation, you're literally training your brain to function without needing a feeling first. That's power. Now here's where it gets brutal. If you only act when you feel like it, you're training yourself to be weak. Because now you need the perfect conditions just to move. Now think about this. Life will never give you perfect conditions. Never. So if that's what you're waiting for, you're wasting time. Now here's something deeper. When you act without motivation, you build something called self-command. That means you say something and you do it. No delay, no discussion, no excuses. Now let me ask you something real. When you tell yourself, I'm going to do this, do you actually follow through? Or is it just talk? Because your brain knows the difference. Now here's the brutal truth. Right now, your brain doesn't fully trust you. Because how many times did you say something and didn't do it? So when you say, I'll start tomorrow, your brain already knows. No, you won't. Now think about how dangerous that is. You're trying to build something with a mind that expects you to quit. Now here's the shift. You rebuild trust through action. Small, consistent, unconditional action. Not when you feel like it. When you said you would. Now here's what you do. First, pick one thing. One task. Non-negotiable. Second, do it daily. Same time. Same standard. No matter how you feel. Third, don't increase it yet. Just prove to yourself that you follow through. Now here's the reality. This will feel boring, repetitive, even pointless sometimes. But that's exactly where discipline is built. Now let me be direct. If you keep chasing motivation, you'll always be dependent. If you build discipline, you become independent. And that's the difference. Now ask yourself this. Do you want to feel powerful or actually be in control? Because those are two completely different things. And right now, your actions already show the answer. Let's stop pretending now. You don't have a motivation problem. You have a discipline problem. And deep down, you already know that. Because if we're honest, you don't need motivation to do easy things. You don't need motivation to scroll. You don't need motivation to watch something. You don't need motivation to stay comfortable. You just do it, automatically. So why do you suddenly need motivation when it comes to things that actually matter? Think about that. Now here's the truth. You don't need motivation. You need control over your actions. Because right now, your actions are controlled by how you feel. And that's the problem. Now let me ask you something honestly. If you only did things when you felt like it, how much would actually get done? Almost nothing. Because most important things in life don't feel good at the beginning. They feel heavy, uncomfortable, boring, repetitive. Now here's where it gets brutal. You've trained yourself to avoid anything that feels like that. So the moment something requires effort, your brain pushes you away from it, and you follow, every time. Now think about this. Every time you say, "I'll do it later," you're not just delaying. You're reinforcing a pattern of avoidance. And over time, that becomes your default. Now your brain expects you to delay. Now your brain expects you to quit. Now your brain expects you to choose comfort. Now let that sink in. You didn't become undisciplined overnight. You trained it through repetition. Now here's something deeper. Motivation gives you a false sense of control. It makes you feel like you're doing something just because you're thinking about it, planning it, talking about it. But reality doesn't care about what you feel. It only reflects what you do. Now let me be direct. You can feel motivated all day and still stay in the same place. Because feeling is not action. Now think about your own life. How many times did you feel like, "This is it. I'm changing now." And then, nothing changed. That's motivation. Temporary, unreliable, useless without action. Now here's the shift. You need to stop asking, "Do I feel like doing this?" And start asking, "Did I say I would do this?" Because that's the only thing that matters. Not your mood, not your energy, your decision. Now here's what you do. First, set a standard, not a goal. A standard, something you do no matter what. Second, remove negotiation. No, maybe later. No, I'll see how I feel. You either do it, or you don't. Third, act fast. Because the longer you wait, the easier it is to fall back. Now here's the reality. This is not exciting. This is not hype. This is control. And control is built in the moments you don't feel like doing anything. Now let me ask you something real. Who are you? On the days you feel nothing? No motivation. No energy. No push. Because that version of you decides everything. Now here's the brutal truth. If you can't act without motivation, you are not in control. Your emotions are. And emotions change. All the time. So if you don't take control, you will. Let's go deeper. Because this is where most people completely lose control. You don't just rely on motivation. You hide behind it. Yeah, you use it as an excuse. A clean one. A socially accepted one. Because it sounds good. I just don't feel motivated. Nobody questions that. Nobody calls it out. But let's be honest. That's bullshit. Because what you're really saying is, I don't feel like doing something that's uncomfortable. That's it. Now think about this. You don't need motivation for things you enjoy. You don't wake up and say, "I need motivation to check my phone." You just do it. So the problem is not motivation. The problem is resistance. And your reaction to it. Now here's the truth. The moment something feels hard, your brain looks for an escape, distraction, delay, anything easier. And instead of pushing through, you follow it. Now let me ask you something honestly. How many times did you stop something? Not because you couldn't continue, but because it felt uncomfortable? Exactly. Now here's where it gets serious. Every time you do that, you weaken yourself. Not physically, mentally. Because you're training your brain to associate effort with stopping instead of pushing. Now think about how dangerous that is. The harder something gets, the faster you quit. That's the pattern you're building. Now here's the brutal truth. You are not tired. You are undisciplined. Because when something actually matters to you, you find energy. You find focus. You find a way. So don't tell yourself, "I don't have the energy." What you mean is, "I don't want to deal with the discomfort." Now let that sink in. Because that's where honesty starts. Now here's something deeper. You're addicted to easy dopamine. Scrolling, watching, consuming, quick rewards, instant satisfaction. And the more you do that, the harder real work feels. Because real work is slow. No instant reward. No quick hit. Just effort. Now think about this. You trained your brain to expect easy stimulation. And now you expect yourself to focus? That makes no sense. Now here's the shift. You don't need more motivation. You need to reduce your dependence on comfort. Now here's what you do. First, cut unnecessary dopamine. Less scrolling. Less distraction. Because that's what's weakening your focus. Second, Do hard things early, before your brain finds excuses, before your energy drops, before you start thinking too much. Third, stay in the task longer than you want. Not until it feels good, until it's done. That's discipline. Now here's the reality. This is not fun. This is not exciting. This is control. And control is built when everything inside you says, stop, and you keep going. Now let me be direct. If you keep avoiding discomfort, you will never become strong. Never. Because strength is built in resistance, not in comfort. Now ask yourself this. Are you actually tired? Or are you just avoiding effort? Because that answer changes everything. Now this is where everything becomes simple. Not easy. Simple. You don't have a motivation problem. You never had one. You have a pattern of avoiding effort. That's it. And the more you avoid it, the harder everything becomes. Not because life is hard, but because you trained yourself to quit when it gets uncomfortable. Now think about this carefully. Your life right now is not the result of what you want. It's the result of what you repeat. Every day, every action, every decision, and most of those decisions are based on how you feel. That's the problem, because feelings change. Every day, every hour, sometimes every minute. So if your actions depend on that, your life becomes unstable, inconsistent, unpredictable. Now let me ask you something real. If you only worked on your goals when you felt motivated, how far would you get? Not far, because motivation is temporary, but your goals require consistency. Now here's the brutal truth. You don't need to feel ready. You need to act ready, even when you're not. Because readiness is not a feeling. It's a decision. Now think about this. Every time you act without motivation, you take control back. Every time you push through resistance, you build strength. Every time you do what you said you would do, you rebuild trust in yourself. And that's what you're missing. Trust. Because right now, you don't fully trust yourself. Not because you can't do it. Because you haven't been consistent. You said, I'll start. You didn't. You said, I'll do it tomorrow. You didn't. You said, this time is different. It wasn't. Now your brain learns something. Not from your words. From your actions. This person doesn't follow through. Now let that sink in. Because that's dangerous. You're trying to build something with a mind that expects you to quit. Now here's the shift. You don't fix this with motivation. You fix it with proof. Small actions. Repeated. Done even when you don't feel like it. That's how you rebuild control. That's how you rebuild trust. That's how you rebuild identity. Now let me be direct. If you keep waiting to feel like it, you will stay exactly where you are, no matter how many videos you watch, no matter how motivated you feel in the moment, because nothing changes until your actions change. Now think about this. The next time you feel that resistance, that moment where you want to stop, that's the moment that matters. Not the easy ones, not the motivated ones. That one, that's where your future is decided. Now the question is simple. Are you going to do what you always do and stop? Or are you finally going to act, even when it feels wrong? Because both paths are clear. Both outcomes are predictable. If you keep following your feelings, you stay the same. If you take control of your actions, everything changes. No magic, no secret, no shortcut, just behavior. Repeated. So stop waiting. Stop thinking. Stop pretending you need something else. You already know what to do. Now do it.